Hello and welcome to another episode of the TNC podcast. I am so excited to get stuck into today's yellow and green conversation. Over 200 appearances for our club, 5 glorious goals, 6 years in the Norwich City Academy, 2-time championship title winner, 18-19 EFL Young Player of the Year, 18-19 plus 2021 PFA Team of the Year, 2020 Golden Boy nominee, called up to the England under-19s and 21s whilst at Norwich City. And hey, he only cost 10 grand from Luton. There's a star man playing down the right. His name is Maxi Aarons and he's dynamite. Max, how are you? How's sunny Spain, mate?
Very good, Chris. Thank you. Loving it, absolutely loving it. The experience has been unbelievable, and obviously the weather's incredible, but the culture and everything, the football out here is unbelievable as well.
Max, I'm so excited to speak with you, matey. It's literally taken me about a year and a half to get this over the line. So I'm really fascinated to see what answers you come out with today. Matey, let's start from the beginning. As always, the best place to start. You were born in Hammersmith, and I want to ask you about your upbringing, what it was like being born there and growing up, and your parents. How was that?
Yeah, unbelievable. I think from the earliest age, from when I can remember, I was down the park with my dad playing football. So it was, absolutely loved it. And growing up, it was literally all about football. So I knew that was just what I loved. And of a certain age, I started to realize, okay, I'm okay at this. And that was kind of a lot of my upbringing was just in the park with friends and with my dad down the park as well, and my mum, to be honest.
Okay, so you go from I'm okay at this to joining Norwich City Academy in 2016 from Luton following a trial. You went on to feature frequently for the 23s, eventually wearing the captain's armband. I want to ask you at that point, Max, what were your hopes, dreams, expectations?
I think initially when I signed Norwich, that first year that I signed, they were in the Premier League. So that was a big thing, and I saw how big the club is. So when I signed, that was immediately. And what I've realised now, going to different and other clubs, is that as soon as I walked through the doors, the people were just so nice that worked within the club. Obviously, the area is great and everything. And my hopes were to obviously play for the first team. And as I started training and playing in the under 18s, 21s. I started to realise that I had the belief that I could definitely do that. And to be honest, as soon as Daniel then became the manager, I knew it was a perfect fit. I know he wasn't just going to throw me in and give me a chance for if I didn't earn it, but I also knew that his style was perfect for the way I play.
Interesting. And before your debut, Max, I'm sure there was at least a handful of people that did believe in you and did have faith in you. Who were those people before your Norwich City debut that really believed in you?
I think the two that stick out, other than obviously Daniel, was Russ Martin and Matt Gill, who obviously then both ended up at Southampton as managers, as manager and assistant manager. Gilly was obviously my 16s, 18s, and then 21s coach. So he kind of moved through the age groups with me. And he's an unbelievable coach and a top guy as well. And he's obviously very close with Russ. And Russ, as soon as he came and was training with us in the 21s, the advice that he would give and the relationship we built from there. He was almost like a father figure. And it's incredible. And obviously, I nearly ended up, back with them upon leaving Norwich that year. So that obviously shows how the relationship just grew and grew, really. But they were the ones definitely that initially believed in me, for sure.
I guess with Russ, Maxi, because he played in your position, right? So you must have just been like, holy moly, you've gone there, you've done that, you've played so many games, you've, done so much in the game. That must have been quite an inspiring person to really get wisdom from, right?
100%. I think with Russ, it was like he had like when he came and trained with us, it was like the aura that he had that, if this guy's training with us, you have to be training well every single day, and I could feel that when he was training with us. I always knew he'd go on to be a manager, and I think the players that have played with him always knew that as well. But like I always knew that when he was training with us, right, boys, we have to be on it. We have to be, at least giving 110%, because if not, Russ will tell you. And I loved that. He pushed every single training session. And when he was training with us, it almost gave me a feel that I was, ready to go and make the jump with, the senior players.
Oh man, I love Russ, Maxi. I really do. So it's good to hear that from you. I want to fast forward now to your first goal. It was away in the cup against Cardiff. How do you remember that game? Because I remember seeing your celebration, and you kind of just went for the arms out, and you looked confused. And what was that experience like for you?
So for me, obviously, I think Cardiff at the time were in the Premier League, so I knew they were going to be a good team, and so going there, my full focus was on just having a really good game. I knew obviously us as a club, we weren't doing so well at the start of that season, so I knew it was a chance to impress. But I also didn't, naturally as a player, you don't want to, you want to go and play your game, but you don't want to make any mistakes or anything like that. So that was my focus. And as the game was going on, and I think Dennis scored that game, obviously Mr. Icon, and from there, then obviously the game opened up, and I think Emmy's played me the ball, and I've just span round and not even thought. It was almost like it just happened within, a split second. So then when I'd scored, I was like, wow, this is what dreams are made of, to be honest. And then what was obviously to follow from that, I could have never expected as well. That season, me and my family, we look back on that season now, and it's like your first career, season in your career. I don't think anything can top the euphoria of that.
We are going to talk about that in quite some length, Maxi. But before we do that, I want to get to your debut, and I remember very well about a week before there was conversations about this young Max Aarons kid that had broken onto the scene, so to speak, and everyone was starting to get excited. Of course, on TalkNorwichCity, we're very emotional. We're saying that you're going to be, the next Cafu, and all of this stuff. And there was Norwich fans going, Max giving him his debut against Ipswich. No way, we can't do that. He's not got the experience. He's not got this. He's not got that. But you did it against Ipswich away, the East Anglian derby. Talk to me about your feelings. You've been bricking it.
Yeah, I was. I remember being sat with Godfrey in the hotel the night before, and he was like, mate, you're gonna be playing tomorrow. And I was like, nah, because obviously Daniel didn't release the team until like literally an hour before the game, so everyone's left guessing until like an hour before the game. And I just thought like the pressure's on a little bit. I'm just not sure if he'll do it. And Ben was like, yeah, you're gonna be playing. So I kind of got my head around it. I started to say to family, maybe travel up for this game from Luton and Milton Keynes, where they all live. So then they travelled up, and then obviously we went into the meeting, and the game was on. So I believed I was ready. I knew I was ready, but I also knew, listen, the team hadn't been doing so well. I knew what a difficult game it could be, what an emotional game it was. But then obviously, I think it was 1-1 the game, and then we just kicked on from there, which was incredible.
That was the spark. I want to ask you, Max, about the man that you took his place, actually, Evo Pinton. We had the pleasure and privilege of having him on the TalkNorwichCity podcast talk about you and your relationship. And I've never heard a player say, after their position's been taken, go, yeah, he was untouchable, he was undroppable, Max was the man. What was your relationship like with Evo? Because you played the remaining 41 games after that one.
It's really difficult because in football, for one chance to come, obviously another person's kind of lost their place. So, at the time, I had to be, really thinking about myself and selfish, and obviously thinking to, put my career on the map and play. But equally, I also knew, it couldn't have been to a, more of a nicer guy whose place I was taking. And we have, had and still have a really, really good relationship. I absolutely love Evo. I thought he was a very underrated player at Norwich. Used to love watching him run up and down the right-hand side. And like I said, a really good relationship. And he was just so supportive that whole season. And I know, having been in football a long time now, it's not, it's not always like that. When people are thinking about themselves and stuff, it can be a little bit different. So absolutely loved working with him, and he's an incredible guy. So, I'm glad to see he's playing and doing really well, over in Holland. So
amazing. And hey, Max, it's a testament to you as well, right? It's not just about how Evo reacted, it's about how you reacted with him. So it's again another testament to your ever present professionalism. Come on, let's talk about 2018-19. We have to, mate. Let's reminisce. Let's drink it in. And it was an iconic season, Max. It really was. And I want to ask you for your standout moments, because there was Leeds away, there was Villa away, there was Millwall at home. Like, there's so many games, but just talk to me about that season.
That season, honestly, I probably think about that season every day. Like, that season is just, it's crazy. I remember a few people saying to me that was obviously my first season in football, and people were saying to me, you do realize, like, every season is not going to be as euphoric as that. And I was like, really? And now I've seen, like, right, that season stands out and will stand out as like one of the best in anyone's career, because it's not just, obviously 2 years later we then won the league again, and I think we finished maybe on higher points than the first season. But the first season, just, I think it was all the comebacks, the late wins, it was incredible. Like, the Leeds game, there was so many. The Nottingham Forest, where we obviously drew the game. Like, games like Millwall, there was like so many. There's so many where, we just won points when we thought we were down and out. And the mentality of that team, the group, everything was just perfect. Yeah,
it was like the underdogs, wasn't it, Max? It was the story, it was the group, and of course for you won the title with your mates, the boy band, as we know them. It was you, it was Jamal, it was Toddy, it was, unfortunately we don't like to speak about him anymore on the Talk Norwich City podcast for obvious reasons, Ben Godfrey. Talk to me about winning the title with your mates. How was that?
Yeah, that topped it off for me. It was the perfect scenario. We spoke about it at the start of the season. We all spoke about it, though, especially the young boys in that group. We spoke about, imagine we were to go and do something special this season. Imagine we were to go and win the league. And at that point, it was just talk. And as we, got confidence and we realized the level of that team, the ability of that team, and, we all started to get confidence and everyone was just flying. It was, wow. And then that day, obviously at Villa Park, just absolutely incredible.
It was so good. I mean, I have to admit, Maxie, and myself and Jack, we don't remember much of it because the beers were flowing at quite some rate.
So I like to hear.
Dusk. Max, I want to ask you about the rest of the team, and anyone from your time at Norwich City that you want to give a shout out to, because you were the man. You were so well liked by everyone in the team, and it always seemed to me like, Max, any video on social media that came out of a prank, you were on the other end of it, being jumped on, being scared.
Yeah. That's when Ben Gibson walked through the door, to be honest, when that all started.
Yeah, that was a classic, mate.
Yeah, I think that was one of the main things that, like I said, from earlier on, walking through the doors, even the staff, whether it's the kit men, obviously Pete, like people like that, absolute John Boy, absolute legends, and like, you don't come across characters and people like that, so much in your career, and I realized, what a special group it was, and that's just out, not just the playing squad, the staff, everyone. So, like I said, it was a special team, special group, and not just special players. It was, special characters as well. And that's what can lead you to titles, because I also think that second season, as much as people thought we had an amazing team that just, come out of the Premier League, it takes another sort of mentality to then go again and win the league in the way we did. And it takes a strong mentality. So, people like Grant, Kenny, Gibbo, absolute, they're the kind of backbone of your team, and they allowed other players, Emmy, myself, Timu, whoever it was, to really go on and perform. And like I said, that was such a special group in every single way, to be honest.
Mate, when you list those names, it actually almost makes me tear up. It was just such a special team. By the way, actually, speak of this, bearing in mind that I prepared this podcast over a year ago now, one of your former teammates, of which I can't remember who, told me apparently you go to the toilet at the same time before every game. Is that true?
Probably, that's probably right. Yeah, to be honest. I don't have many superstitions, but that is definitely one of them. You know what I do? I just get a black coffee and then go to the toilet and read the match day program. Probably about 20 minutes before going out to play. So that's my ritual.
I love it. I've got this vision of you on the toilet reading your program now after your black coffee. I'm politely assuming it was a number 2, but anyway, let's swiftly move on.
Yeah.
Max, exactly next season, 2019-20, Premier League, you get up there. I remember it well. First game was Liverpool away of all games. Why do you think we didn't survive that season? And also, what were the conversations going on behind the scenes once the dust had settled on that relegation season in the Premier League?
I think that is such a turning point on, that's a big frustration when you think we went up that season with the season before with Villa, and you look at where they are now. That's frustrating to me, as to when I look at the group we had and how we won the league that year, the talent we had. And in the Premier League, I remember that season, it felt like we were in games and doing well. A lot of the games, our performance level was really, really good. We won a few games early on that season, the City game, the different games. And I think then COVID hit, and I know COVID then happened for everyone, and everyone was playing in empty stadiums, but it really, really, really killed us, but badly. And obviously we lost the last 10 games of that season, which was, that hurt all the players for sure. But it felt like we were just going into form as COVID hit. It felt like we were just starting to get to grips with, right, this is the level we need to be at every single week. We obviously beat Leicester. We had the FA Cup game, the win at Spurs, and then we lost to Sheffield United just before the COVID break. But it felt like, okay, cool, I think we're going to pick up. Everyone had that feeling that we were going to pick up points towards the end of the season, and I really felt like it would have gone on, and we'd have stayed up that year. 100%. I feel we would have stayed up that year if fans would have still been in the stadium. Wow. But it happened, and naturally there was a little bit of disappointment with that going into the next season. But again, everyone was so keen to prove that we were, we should be back in the Premier League. And yeah, we hadn't stayed up, but we were so keen to prove that we should be back there as soon as the first time of asking. Before we go into that season behind closed doors, Max, because that was a wacky one, it really was. I want to go back to a specific memory of that season where we got relegated. I want to talk about Spurs away in the cup. It was an epic night. We won on penalties. I vividly remember the scene. You running towards the 9,000 Norwich City, the Yellow Army. You actually
completely stacked it. You slipped over on your backside in front of everyone. I mean, that was a special night, wasn't it?
That's what I mean. And now I know, moments like that were what gave us that confidence. I remember finishing that game. I remember saying to Ben or Jamal, I can't remember who it was. I remember saying, we're going to stay up and we're going to have a good end to the season. And it was those types of games, we can compete against the top teams of that league. We did, it's so disappointing. I think people look back on that season and remember the last 10 games that obviously happened after COVID. But before that, we were playing some very, very good football. We were in games. We were competing really, really well. So it's so disappointing how it ended. But yeah, that memory of I think Krul ran the whole pitch, and I just have the memory of him just sprinting the whole pitch, and obviously Todd had a top penalty as well, and that whole game. Yeah, just incredible.
So such good memories, Max. I'll be brave with you now, and this might be uncomfortable, but I have to ask you this question. I am so excited to ask you, what was it like being a young guy? You're still a young guy, but a particularly young guy at that point. You've had your first season in the Premier League. You've just won the title, and all of a sudden, you see the news, you hear the news, you're being told the news. Barcelona want your services. Bayern Munich want your services. How did that all come about, and what were the conversations, and how did you cope with that transfer speculation?
I think, to be honest, Daniel was amazing in that period, because I also knew that as a manager, he 100% got the best out of me. He said to me, listen, you stay with me and your level is just going to improve and improve and improve. Obviously Barcelona then came with the loan offer. It's hard because obviously with a loan offer, you can only, from my side anyway, you can only, at that point anyway, you could only push it so far, because I had another 4 years on my contract at Norwich. And again, I also believed in the group, because it was such a good group, because the club had such good people in it, because Daniel was the manager, because we had so many amazing relationships. It didn't feel right to, kick up a huge fuss, and it just did not feel right. I also felt a responsibility after what the club had, given me a lot of faith as well, to get them back up the next season, which was important to me for sure. So yeah, it's there was a lot of talk, a lot of different things going on, but for me, like I said, Daniel was incredible at that period, and I don't think he gets as much credit as he should do, because that's a lot of the bits that people don't see, and he was unbelievable through that period.
I mean, I probably didn't help matters, Max, because I was calling you the Barcelona-bound boy on our watch-alongs, so I probably wasn't making things better.
It's funny. It's it was crazy that period, just crazy.
I'm going to go to that period, but before I do that, Max, one of the things that I've got and I felt from your answer to that Bayern Munich Barcelona question was, you are so professional and so mature, but we knew this from your first games at Norwich City, how professional, how mature you were, how dedicated you were, how loyal you were to Norwich City. But I want to ask you, was there ever a time that you cracked? Was there ever a time that you could share at Norwich City where you actually were angry or frustrated or felt let down or annoyed with someone?
Yeah, to be honest, and obviously, listen, I'm speaking openly here. The frustrating part was when we got promoted the second time, and I felt, right, this club needs some, we've got a very good group here again. This is our second time now in the Premier League. I felt like everyone was ready. Everyone had played. I'd played 35 odd games already then in the Premier League at 21. The whole team had a lot of Premier League experience. I felt like, right, this group, we've just won the league, 97 points or whatever it was. I felt like, right, this is the point where you know, we need to be shown some backing here to go and kick on to another level. And then when that didn't happen, and you know, there's no one specifically to blame for that. When that didn't happen and we went into the season, the transfer window closed. And, you know, no disrespect to the players we brought in, incredible characters. But from that point, you know, when you spend that sort of money, like even, you know, when I arrived at Bournemouth, you know, we'd spent that summer, you know, over £100 million. And that's what you have to do these days to even give yourself a chance of staying in the league. So at that point when we'd gone up the second time and, you know, there wasn't that back in, and again, you know, Daniel was he couldn't do any more. And then to see him then sacked, I just knew from then, as soon as he was sacked, that was when I was like, okay, cool. I basically, you know, a lot of me staying at the club at that point was because of him. And then to have that taken away and, you know, not be backed in the way that as players I felt we should have been. I don't know, maybe if you was to ask some of the other players, they might think the same, because I've not actually spoken to anyone else about this, but that was extremely disappointing.
I appreciate your honesty, Maxi. And look, the fans felt the same. You know, we for one reason or another, you know, never managed to get the resources, or, you know, were given the resources to try to be, I guess, really serious in the Premier League. You've touched upon something there, Max, Daniel Farke, and of course, you know, you would speak with such love and respect about the man that gave you such a tremendous opportunity and gave you so much trust to break into the team. I want to know, what was it like? Really, what was it like when Daniel got sacked? Because I think we'd not won in 10 games at the start of the season, had we? Or we'd lost all of those games or something silly.
Yeah.
So then he gets sacked. How's Maxi Aarons feeling at that point? Because he is your father figure, essentially.
Yeah, it's crazy. But if you know, not just me, I could sense the whole group. It wasn't like he's been sacked and everyone felt like, right, we can really kick on here. Obviously, we felt, right, we'll give it a good go till the end of the season. But everyone was just like, everyone had an amazing relationship with him within that group. Everyone had an amazing relationship with him, and everyone knew the style of play. Everyone knew he improved everyone. So then to have that taken away, I feel like that was when I could feel the club had started to, and you know, I was saying this at the time, I'm not just saying it now because then we obviously went on to get relegated. I was saying at the time that, you know, it was a horrendous decision from what I can say at the time, because he was the person that had done so much for us as a group. We all knew our roles, we all knew the way of playing, and we all believed in it. We'd just beaten Brentford, and it felt like, you know, we did have a horrendous fixtures at the start of that season. And obviously, like I say, he wasn't backed, and I don't feel like the club and us as players and the fans as well were backed in you know, going into that season. So yes, frustrating. And like I say, to answer your question before, that was the point where I was like, right, this, you know, this is from all the positives and the highs and everything like that. That was the point where it kind of had switched a little bit.
So interesting, Max. Thank you for being so open about that. I appreciate that. I do want to rewind a bit, though, because we've got to talk about that season behind closed doors. It was really weird. I mean, myself and Jack were essentially drunk throughout the whole season on camera, trying to keep the Norwich fans company. You boys were playing in empty stadiums and you won the league. I mean, that is just so weird, but yet so joyous. What was that season like for you?
Yeah, like you say, it was weird. We were like winning games and not celebrating with anyone, and just going home, going into training the next day and doing it all over again. And it was just weird because, you know, the cheer of scoring a goal or doing something amazing. We were on a winning streak of however many games, and it was just like, this is a little bit weird. And like I say, it was, obviously everyone was in that position, but it was just so odd to have such an amazing season to happen, you know, during COVID, which then was amazing. Then for the start of the next season to then have, you know, full Carrow Road at the Liverpool game, the start of the season was amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was a truly special time. It really was. Max, one of the things that Norwich fans know about you is you were so consistent and you were always ever present. And you made so many appearances for Norwich City at such a young age. You made 150 appearances for our club at just 22 years old. I want to ask you, how did you adapt so fast at such a young age to the rough and tumble of the Championship? Because with love and respect, Max, you're not a big, bulky, dirty Brexit footballer, right? You're a lean, mean machine, right? So how did you adapt?
Yeah, it was. I think, to be honest, the group, the players that we had, allowed me to go in and just play straight away. Also, everyone knows you can probably make out in this, that how much I loved Daniel's style of play, and it just really fitted with the way that I play. So to come into the team and have him give full confidence in me, I remember a key part. A few games in, I played really well initially, and I had a game against Wigan, which probably people won't remember, and I felt like, whoa, this is a different sort of game I've been used to. It was a proper physical, and I hadn't been used to that. And I was like, this next game we play against Derby, the manager might take me out here. And he said, no, like, you're staying in and you're going to play. And after that, I knew, right, he's got full confidence in me. I can have a bad game every now and then, and he'll still have confidence in me. And that, as a player, you ask any player, that feeling there is incredible. So that was what it was.
That's such an interesting insight, Max. And something else I want an insight into now. And again, I'm going to be brave with you, so feel free to say what you feel comfortable to say or not. 22-23 season, Daniel Farke is sacked. Frank Lampard was rumoured to be in the running to take his position at the football club. Dean Smith ended up getting the Norwich City head coach job. How did you find the experience working with Dean Smith?
It was difficult. It was I could sense there was a natural disappointment with the players as to how the season was going. There was almost like a flatness that we didn't have 2 seasons before when we'd got relegated. We were playing well. We felt like we were going into every game, but I felt like there was a flatness, and that's not specifically on Dean. I think he was coming into a team that was a little bit damaged at that point, to be honest. And I really liked him, and as a person, and shaky as well. Obviously, it's really, really sad what's happened with him, and an unbelievable guy and a really, really good coach. But yeah, I think it was just, to be honest, I think whoever was coming in at that point, and I don't know why this was, but because they came in early in the season, whoever came in at that point, I feel like it was really hard for them to get anything out of that season. And like I say, that was really, that was disappointing. That season definitely hurt people in the club and hurt a lot, to be honest, after what we'd built.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They were two they had different styles, didn't they, Max? And then, of course, after Smith, obviously, once we're down the Championship, it doesn't work out. We then make that change to David Vagner. We kind of almost back into Farke style-ish. Obviously, really want to get your insight into what it was like working under David Vagner, and what changed for you at that point behind the scenes personally in your position.
Yeah, I think when we got relegated that season, I sat down with my agent, family and stuff, and I said, right, I think this is the point where maybe the club's going in a different direction, to where I feel like I'm going and I need to be playing at the highest level for sure. The club had said, listen, we give it another go together, and we attempt to go back up. And as that season went on, and I don't know whether we finished 14th that year, when David came in, it was like a breath of fresh air, to be honest. He was great. His staff were really, really good, and everyone tried. And that season was disappointing. Just a lower mid-table finish in the Championship for Norwich was just like, it was just not good enough. And that was a point where I knew, especially with the Euros, with the under-21s coming up, I knew that was probably most likely the summer. I think I had 1 year left on my contract. I knew that was the summer where it was right to make that next step, whether it's the Premier League or a top league in Europe. It was the right step, and the club you know, we all sat down towards the end of that season and said this is probably the right time that, you know, they get some money for me, and also I make that next step, which is important for me.
So bearing in mind, Max, you'd been at the club, you know, you've been in the academy for 6 years, you know, the debut, the iconic seasons, the 2 titles, the heartache of, you know, not, you know, your guy is sacked. They don't give the money to truly back us to stay in the Premier League. It must have been more difficult for you to leave our club because of the depth of your relationship and ties with Norwich City. Was that the case? It must have almost hurt to have to leave Norwich City.
Yeah, I think at that point it was like it was really disappointing because, as I've said, that, you know, those seasons where I felt we should have stayed in the Premier League, and this, you know, the first season, fine, we all gave it what we gave it, and we played with the team that we had in the Championship, and that was great, and all the boys grew from that. But then that second season, definitely for me personally, you know, was really, really disappointing. And then at that point where then we didn't go up the following season, I knew obviously that was the point where I needed to leave. Yeah, like I said, it was a bigger decision than, and I wanted to join the right project. I didn't want to just leave for the sake of it. I wanted to join the right project, and yeah, it was definitely a big decision. But the club were also on the same page, and knew that was the first point where I'd put my marker down and said, no, this is the summer where I'll probably be going.
So you join Bournemouth, your Bournemouth chapter starts, you're back in the Premier League. It was the 10th of August 2023 that deal went through. How would you describe how your time at Bournemouth started? How would you summarise your Bournemouth chapter to date? Of course, you're out on loan at the moment with Valencia, I'll ask you about in a minute, but what do you feel about Bournemouth, their fans, what the club's like, and how your time's been with them so far, Max?
Yeah, really, really good club. It's like, you know, when I speak to and that's another thing, when I speak to the players at Bournemouth, like players like Adam Smith and who were in the Championship the second season, we were in the Championship, and players like Philip Billing that were in the Championship, and they were playing against us. They were like, for you guys, when we played against you that season, when you went up 97 points, you were like, felt like we were playing Man City at certain points. And then that's just crazy to me because obviously now, you know, you look at where Bournemouth, where, you know, we are as a club, and how they're doing, especially this season, you know, and it's like, you know, they had a big backing, and spent a lot of money, and it, you know, you have to do that, and I've got an unbelievable coach in Iraola as well. All of it just kind of, you know, aligned really well, and I felt like at that, you know, that again, that was what brought me back to the Norwich time, where I felt like that second season is what should have happened. So yeah, but you know, at Bournemouth is a brilliant club. The project's amazing. Some really, really good young players. And I started off, you know, playing really, really well last season, was doing really well. And then I've got like probably the first injury of my career, which was a hamstring injury after, you know, and that was about 5 or 6 weeks out. And I came back and played the Liverpool game and done the other side, which was crazy. I think I'd just come back too soon. And then obviously the team carried on doing well. And, you know, when you're, you know, in the Premier League, it's a tough league. So when, you know, if you lose your spot and the team carry on doing well, it was really hard to find, you know, those minutes again. So then obviously the Valencia loan then came up in January, and it was a really good chance to, you know, experience a new league and a new team for a period.
So let's talk about Valencia, Max. I mean, I smile because, of course, I've just got the Barcelona-bound boy. I've got, you know, Max Aarons, the Norwich City Academy player, is now playing in Spain for Valencia, a huge club. You're there on loan. You moved there, obviously, in the last January transfer window. Norwich fans feel so proud seeing you make that move, Max. It's incredible. What's it been like for you playing for a club of that size and stature?
It's incredible. Like, I always knew, like you referred to there, from when that interest was from Barcelona, I always knew that, you know, that made me think, actually, I would love to play abroad, but play at, you know, a big team abroad in Spain, especially, I think would really, as you could probably see from the way I play, is something that could be really suited to me, and I always thought that. So actually, a few years ago, Valencia were interested. A few years ago, from what I remember, and the sporting director is still the same guy. And when it came up in January, and we'd spoken to Bournemouth and we were all okay with the loan. I knew this was, there was a few options, but I knew this was a really good place to come, and the stadium's incredible. The fans are, some of the best I've heard in the world, and from experiencing it now, absolutely incredible. So the club's huge in Spain as well.
Not quite as good as the Norwich City fans, Max, of course. But anyway,
no,
no doubt they're amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things I have to talk about, Max, again, speaking, I feel like a proud uncle, your proud uncle in Norfolk saying this. You rock up at the Bernabeu with Valencia, you win the game 2-1, and you are coming up against Vinicius Jr. What? That just sounds like a cheese dream, Max. That's mad.
Crazy game. Again, like I touched on before, it's, those are the experiences and the games that as a player, with a lot of ambition, that you want to be playing in. You want to be testing yourself against the absolute best in the world. And with Norwich, with Bournemouth, played against Liverpool, played against Arsenal, so huge clubs. And then to have that different experience against Real Madrid. Obviously, my first 2 games here were Barcelona in the league, Barcelona in the cup. So it's like you're testing yourself against the absolute best, and that's those games there have opened my eyes, and to have such an amazing win at the Bernabeu is just absolutely incredible. It was not just that, the performance as well, because between that, before that, I hadn't played so much. So going into that game, I wasn't fully in my rhythm, and as a player, you're thinking, right, going into the toughest game probably in world football here, how am I going to hold up, especially with no rhythm? And then to go and play like that, I was, felt amazing. And then the 70th minute hit and the cramps start setting in. I was like, got to get off here, because like I say, you're playing against the toughest team, and on that big pitch at the Bernabeu, it's but incredible.
Unbelievable, mate. It's just, to me, it's crazy. Do you ever think, Max, how the hell has all this happened? From where, let's go back to Hammersmith. Let's go back to the Norwich City Academy. And then that happens at the Bernabeu. Do you ever pinch yourself and think, this isn't real? This is all just a dream?
Yeah, obviously, listen, I'm, really ambitious, and I have full belief that, I still have another few levels to go to reach my best level. But moments like that are wow, absolutely incredible. Yeah, the games like that, and that game was step back and thought, wow, that was top. And yeah, just moments like that make your career in football, and you look back on those when you're retired, and you have that moment framed for sure.
So speaking of ambition, Max, you're now at Bournemouth. You've got 4 years left on your contract there. I want to ask you, what's your plan for next season? What's your plan for future seasons? What do you want to achieve in the game? And is there a future for you at Bournemouth?
Yeah, for sure. I think, listen, like you say, I've got a number of years there still, and I think it's time definitely to sit down with the club there and speak about the plan. It's a great project there. The players, unbelievable coach, and people at the club. So for sure, I believe that I can play there and make an impact, as I did when I first was playing there until the injury. So yeah, for sure. Again, I'm open-minded as well, because this experience out here has been incredible. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, we'll see what's to come for sure, and it's exciting.
That's amazing, Max. So we've done the Bournemouth bit, we've done the Valencia bit, but I want to get you back onto Norwich City, mate. Come back to Norwich City now. I want to ask you, what's your opinion from afar? Looking, and it is your team, isn't it? I'm sure that you still class yourself as a bit of a Norwich City fan, if you like, given how long.
I'm definitely a fan, for sure. If you're to ask me, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was having a joke with one of my friends the other day, and he was like, he said, I have no affiliation you to Norwich? And he was like, I'm a Norwich fan. And he was like, are you? And I was like, yeah, like for sure. If that someone was to ask me that, my club, it'll be them for sure.
Oh, mate, that makes me so happy. Thank you for sharing that. And on Norwich City, what do you think about the club now, the position it's in? At time of recording, we've just sacked Johannes off Turup, so we're now, Jack Wilshere's now in charge. What's your thoughts on Norwich City Football Club now you're not with us anymore?
To be honest, I really like the direction that the club's going in this season. It sounds odd to say that because of obviously the last few games and the position that they're in, but I like that it feels like they've almost gone a bit, full circle and come back to having a solid style of play, which I think is really important. You look at the teams that have been promoted up the Championship a lot, they have a distinct style of play and everyone knows their role and their job. And to see that, going back to that this season, I really liked obviously I don't know him personally, but I really liked the direction the club was going. You can see with some young players, the group as well, it looked like from afar, anyway, obviously I'm not involved, but it looked like from afar that they were kicking on, and obviously the results recently haven't been great, but no, I like, as long as they get this next appointment right, I like the project, I like the players that are playing, how they've gone down the young players route and the style of play for sure, but obviously it's frustrating for the fans at the moment.
Absolutely frustrating for you as a fan. And Max, there is one player I want to ask you about actually, because of obviously the position that he plays in, a young player that is really, really, been a duck to water in this Norwich City side, is young Kellen Fischer. He's likened to be, the next Max Aarons by some Norwich City supporters. He's even stolen your song as well. I don't know if you know that. What do you think of young Kellen Fischer?
Yeah, I really like what I've seen of him. I think I've done like 2 or 3 weeks in pre-season before I signed at Bournemouth after the Euros with England, and was training and I could see that he had some ability, and that was back then under David Vagner. So and then this season it looks like he's kicked on another level for sure. So like I say, players like that I'm really liking to see. That route that they're going down, and I do think it's really exciting actually. I think maybe next season I think the club can kick on and have a good a real good push next season. I do believe that.
But Max, you've been nice there, but come on, he stole your Norwich City song. I mean, surely that's going to have annoyed you a little bit.
That's the one part I don't like. I don't like that. Whoever it is, whether it's in the where they're singing it in the Barclay or wherever it is, they need to get rid of that. Change the song and give him another song for sure. You can leave that, Chris.
Okay, Max has asked for it. Yellow Army. He wants a new song for Kellen Fischer. Look, Max, I've got to be honest with you. I can't let you come on the Talk Norwich City podcast and not ask you this question. Is there a world, and would you ever welcome a move back to Norwich City Football Club?
Listen, that's for me. That's not a yes or no question, because it's a lot of it's down to circumstances. For me, in an ideal world, in a perfect world, for sure, I would love to at some point, whether that's in years to come, return there. That's, as people know, that's my club for sure. But things have to align, and to end up somewhere, your career has to end up with the club's trajectory as well. And right now, that's I don't think that's the right thing. But for sure, you've put me on the spot there. But I think in the future, I would absolutely love to be back there one day. But let's see if everything was to work out in the future in a number of years and see. But my love for the club and my love for the people there as well. Incredible club for sure.
There you go, Ben Napper. I'll take that as a yes from Matt. Get the contract on the table. I joke, mate. Thank you for answering that openly. I appreciate that, mate. Look, Max, there's thousands upon thousands of Norwich City fans now, you know, waiting on every word from your mouth. They drove all over the country to watch you play. What is your message to the Yellow Army that supported you, that backed you, that cheered you on when you bombed down that right-hand side? What's your message to them?
I think just, you know, especially now, I think they're almost in a period that came before, you know, I came into the team, in that period where, you know, we then went on to amazing things. And I think as long as they keep the faith, keep the support, and keep pushing, that club will be back. And to be honest, Chris, it pained me last season seeing, you know, I didn't actually play the game. Well, this season I didn't actually play the game, but having to go to Portman Road in the Premier League was not a nice feeling. So we need to keep, you know, Norwich for me should always be in the Premier League. And I think to keep the faith, you know, obviously they know from my side, I, you know, absolutely gave everything for that club. So, you know, it's important that for me to see from the outside now that you know, the club's pushing in the right direction. And I feel like the club's growing. Whether people agree or not at the moment, I do think the club's growing and going in a direction. I think they can definitely kick on next year with the young players and the staff and the group. You know, it's a top club.
Max, hopefully we will welcome you back in the famous yellow and green one day. Thank you so much for your time on this episode. Everyone, every single Norwich City fan would like to wish you the very best of luck for the rest of your career. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you for coming on.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure, Chris. Always a pleasure. So it's been a few years in the making, but finally on here. So
you kept me waiting, mate. And of course, a massive, massive thank you to every single Norwich City fan watching and listening around the world. If you've enjoyed this exclusive podcast with Maxi Aarons, the Barcelona-bound boy, now at Valencia, do give us a like on YouTube, a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify. Make sure you're following Talk Norwich City for the best social media content on the internet of a Norwich City faith. What do you think of this episode? Let us know. Get your comments in on social media at Talk Norwich City, and I'll be sure to share all of them as a thanks for your support. Finally, Maxi Aarons, there's only one thing left to say. What's that?
On the ball, City.
You still remember it? On the ball, City.
That's it. Of course.